we are so beyond grateful that we live here. Before we moved here to Washington, we lived in Florida. You get out of high school and it's awesome, you go to the beach. What other high school wouldn't love to do that? But as you become an adult and you have things like a bank account and cars and you want to go places and you can afford to travel, you can afford to take weekends places, Florida becomes a lot less appealing to people who like to be mobile. People who are into things like, fishing, boating, and stuff like that, completely get it. But that wasn't us. And that's one of the reasons why we decided to move to the Pacific Northwest. We did our honeymoon in Bavaria. We went to Munich, we went to Salzburg, Füssen, all around southern Germany and Austria. And upon moving here, one of the things that we said was that we couldn't believe how much of Washington was like Bavaria. And because of that, it immediately held a very soft spot in our heart. Within at least 2 hours in each direction around us, you have the Pacific coast, you have mountains. It's really easy to get over to the eastern part of the state where there's plenty of vineyards, well-known vineyards. It's just, to us, there's nothing like Washington in this country. It's stunning. With that said, I know that not everyone lives in super picturesque areas. Some people, live in very urban environments. Some people live in areas that don't have the topography that we have. But that doesn't mean you can't work with what you have. That doesn't mean that you can't get really cool outdoor shots, really cool urban shots. It just means you have to try a little bit harder. So some of my photos that do the best on social media and have been blogged by plenty of other accounts and have made it onto some websites is one of my favorite spots to shoot. It's really close by to where we live too. It's called Mount Si. So, you can see why. The place is it's breathtaking. It looks like it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's got mountains, it's got wide open spaces, low-lying clouds, trees. You go a little further back, there's a river. So it is the epitome of a perfect photo spot. And like I said, I've gotten a lot of really cool shots there that a lot of RAM accounts, a lot of RAM forums, pages on Facebook, things like that have used and reblogged. Because it, to me, embodies everything that has to do with a 4x4. You're out in the wild. You're completely secluded. Nature. It's quiet. It's you, your truck, and that is it. But is it? No, it's not. This is where the creativity comes in. So why don't we take a look at what that area really looks like? And I hope I don't ruin the aesthetic, but this is what it really is. It's not quite as cool when you see all that, is it? But that's what photography is about. It's kind of creating a mood, creating an environment, an aesthetic, and letting the viewer imagine whatever it is that they want, and that photo is just facilitating their imagination. You just want to get them thinking about being out, about exploring, and that's essentially what these kind of photos are about, right? Being adventurous, finding new things. That spot, not super adventurous. Like I said, the photos look like it, but there's a bank about 1,000 feet down the road, a church, some daycare, a big grocery store, a car wash, and then right behind those trees, closer to the mountain, is one of the biggest high schools I've ever seen. But when I go to these places, I think about that. I think about what I want the viewer to experience when I take my shots. I think about trying to hide all of those features. So even that drone shot, the one that I just showed you, initially I wanted to come in and shoot my subjects. So we had the back of the Jeep pointed towards the mountain, which in retrospect, not a great idea because you don't get the mountain in the shot. And it wasn't until I actually got the drone up and started flying towards the Jeep that I was like, oh, giant road. Kind of boring, not very cool. So put the drone back up, started shooting towards the mountain. Well, then over to the right, and it doesn't really matter if it was too much in, but I didn't want it to be a big focal point, is this big farm. It's not really a farm, it's just kind of like a tourist stop-off spot. Not a big deal, it's a cool looking little farm, but there's always a ton of cars parked outside of it because it's got a little parking lot there. So have to now turn around from that road and can't go straight to the mountain, have to go to the mountain but kind of adjust right a little bit, and you'll see it off the corner to make sure that I get all those things. And then once I get to a certain height, I can kind of rotate over. These are all the things that I go into thinking about when I'm trying to take photos, make a video. I'm trying to create a mood. I'm not just trying to get a cool shot. I have a plan in mind. And that's what I'm trying to get across with this video, is I have a lot of people asking me, oh man, how do you take those shots? You're so lucky to get to those places. They're so unique, they're so pretty, you're out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, they are pretty, and yeah, they're unique, but beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? Uniqueness is, everything's unique. Wherever you live is going to be unique. There's going to be something about it that's different than something else. But with that in mind, sometimes you can't get out. Sometimes you live in an area where it's just, maybe, I don't know, there really is nothing to see. Be more creative. Try to make things seem like they're not. Kind of like I said with the mountain, but you just got to work a little harder. For example, that is also a video that's done pretty well. It's been blogged on a ton of different stuff. A lot of people have stolen it, actually, which is fine because I put music in there that would be otherwise copyrighted. I can't use, on YouTube or anything. I have to actually just change the sound for this video. But point being, everybody saw it and thought, oh man, that's super duper cool. I got back from washing my truck and it was not a great day for shooting. I just kind of wasn't into it, but I had my drone with me for whatever reason, so I decided, play around with it in the garage, see what happens. Pulled my truck to the back end of the garage, flew my drone at it, did a couple things, just wasn't feeling anything. And then I was like, it'd be cool if the lights turned on or if something happened. And so then I was thinking, well, how do I do that? Well, I'll show you. Not as cool, right? And even I surprised myself in the editing process when I got done with that, because I was like, wow, that turned out pretty cool and it looked pretty crap. Which kind of gets me to another point. Just disguise your surroundings if you can. You want to shoot with those things in mind. Shoot knowing that you're going to do something with shadows, you're going to do something in post with highlights. You want to shoot knowing that you're going to try to add some sort of effect afterwards. For instance, I knew I wanted to get the lights on. The only way I could do it was sitting inside my truck, flying the drone, and turning the lights on. I was terrified I was going to run my drone into my truck. Added a sound effect to it that I got from a free effects place. Was just a hit and a riser, and sounded like an echo coming in through the place as soon as the lights. It was really cool. The added bonus that I didn't expect, that I didn't notice until I started messing with things like highlights and color grading in Premiere, was the kind of puff of dust at the end. And it almost looks like a smoke machine was going and then it just went poof and blew smoke at the truck. It was just the fact that the garage was dirty and the propellers from the drone blew dust in the way. Those aren't things that I planned on. You learn these things, you figure new things out, you become creative by experience. You don't just go out there and say, I've got a great idea. You have to work at these things, and a lot of it is trial by error. Changing little things to set a mood is a big deal in changing the aesthetic of your shots. For instance, this photo. The sun was getting low, and I was actually preparing to put up my drone when I turned and saw that it was kind of highlighting this one lone tree in the background facing the lake. And I pulled out my camera. I had my 135 on at the time. Just took a quick snap. There wasn't a whole lot to take out, but there was one thing that I wanted to take out. Those trash cans completely ruin the mood of the entire shot. Doesn't matter what type of color grading you do, doesn't matter what type of edits you do. Things like that can completely destroy a shot. Sometimes you have to go as far as using a clone tool and healing tools to completely get rid of a giant set of trash cans. Albeit it wasn't my best work, but I did it super quick, and I think I did it on Lightroom Mobile. But those are the kind of things that you need to take into consideration when trying to set the mood and an aesthetic for a shot. There's always somebody going to be doing the same thing as you or at the same spot as you. The difference between what makes things interesting and intriguing is how they're perceived. And in my opinion, that's how photography should be approached. The way somebody lights a subject, the way somebody captures contrasts. There are so many different ways to create a mood through a photograph that would otherwise fly in the face of uniqueness or technical correctness. I have a big kind of beef with people who really worry about proper metering and things like that. Like, it's getting to the point, especially in this day and age where everybody has some type of camera, that the art of photography is taken out of it, and that the emotion that photography is supposed to evoke is being completely denigrated. Case in point, Iceland, one of the most heavily photographed nature landscapes on the planet. And I'm sure that you've seen this mountain. It's called Kirkjufell. I think it's Church Mountain is what it means. It's one of the most stunning backdrops that you can imagine. Every photo of it is beautiful. And if you go to Instagram and search Kirkjufell, you will find thousands upon thousands of photos of it. Every one is gorgeous. You just can't stop looking at it. But then you start thinking, because the reality of Kirkjufell is that every morning there are a ton of photographers there waiting to shoot that mountain, and they have to stand behind a rope to get the shot. The picture that I use as reference is actually from a really good article on F-stoppers, where the author debates whether or not Iceland is overshot. The link's going to be in the description for that article. So I guess to wrap up, the entire point of me shooting this video was to kind of give some perspective on the numerous people who have asked me how I shoot the way I do, how do I get my shots, or they've said I'm so lucky to live where I do to get these outstanding backgrounds and landscapes. While they're absolutely correct, I am fortunate. There are things that people can find. You can do those things. It just takes getting out and exploring, driving around, finding, a front of a store shop that's really cool, a mural somewhere, doing something, just getting out at the proper time of day. And that's, in short, kind of how I get the pictures, the shots of my truck. By no means the only thing I shoot. In fact, that's kind of the hobby thing that I shoot. While I was a marketing manager at a real estate company, I would go and help them shoot interiors and stuff. And to be frank, I actually really like that. It's easier and it pays the bills, so that's what I'm trying to get back into. But even when you're doing that, try to do something different when you're comfortable. Try to emulate things, grow your skill base, then when you feel comfortable there, try to do something else. There's no such thing as failing in art. It's all subjective.